Hello. So I'm going to brag on myself. I have completed week 2 of the 75 hard, including an out of town voyage, which definitely mixed it up a bit. This video, I am going to hit not only the 75 hard recap, but also apply it to like productivity business. So if you're someone who like knows what they need to be doing, I know I need to drink more water. I know I need to show up online. I know I need to get out and move my body. And yet you're just not doing it. I know. I've been there. I'm sure you're there. We're all there from time to time, right? How do we get out of shoulding ourselves to death? Which, if you say that fast, you get it. Instead of the shoulds, because if you're a rebel like me, whenever I hear a should, I immediately want to do the opposite. So I really want to talk this live, give some tips for surviving the second week. Don't make a major mistake like I did. That actually, maybe I should reset the clock. I'm still kind of divided on whether to or not because technically I did miss one, which means you go back to day one. But I also have 2 really solid weeks behind me, and it was an accident. So we'll chat about that a little bit more. And if you're like, what is the 75 hard? I'm sure most of us have heard it by now. If you're on TikTok, you probably know. It is a mental toughness challenge that involves basically 2 45-minute workouts when it's outside, a gallon of water, reading some self help stuff, taking a photo, and you do it for 75 days. And if you miss one of those things, you start over. So, whew, I'm so glad business is not like if you miss one of those things, you start over because that would take it to a whole new level. And yet that has been the accountability hack itself is I didn't want to start over because I didn't want to prolong the 75 days. So more on that later. I'll tease you a little bit. But let's get into like you know what you need to be doing, but why the heck aren't we doing it? Well, one of the first questions I like to ask myself or my clients is it a burnout situation? Because I think a lot of us are living in fight or flight. So sometimes we have things like burnout from work or even something like adrenal burnout or thyroid issues or things like that. So I always like to kind of check in and see, we're quick to jump to a mental health. Oh, it's anxiety, it's depression. But sometimes it is something physical. Sometimes it is that maybe you're vitamin deficient. Maybe you've got a more complicated medical issue going on. And I think a lot of times the two things get conflated. So I always like to cover my bases. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Megan Monday. I am a psychologist, and actually, I'm a pleasure psychologist, which is I want you to feel more joy in your life, okay? And I have found that I'm having a lot more joy in my life doing the 75 hard, which, to be honest, that is not a result that I was expecting. I was expecting maybe to be fit or motivated or something like that. But like, really, it has brought me a lot of joy. So I find myself telling my clients a lot the more you do, the more you can do. So this is not a proponent of hustle culture. Um, there's a lot of limitations that come with that, and a lot of us are addicted to doing all the things. Okay, so if you're a high achiever, that is usually a person that I do love to work with. And yet, that's a different scenario altogether, okay? A lot of us are living in all or nothing, which is fight or flight in my mind. And so we're either all the way on doing all the things or we're all the way off doing nothing. And so I think it's breaking through that fight or flight cycle. And the 75 hard has been great for that. So if you're interested, I did create a little Fearless Feminine spin-off version of the 75 hard, and it's a little softer, brings in some of that divine feminine so we can make it through what is a very masculine, tough, rigid challenge. And yet, like I said, the masculine is important in providing the container and protecting the feminine. And again, this is not a gender thing. We all have masculine and feminine. I wish there was a better way to say it. I think you could say active and receptive, perhaps, could be a version of that. So let's dish a little bit on how to trick yourself to do the things that maybe you should, I hate to even say that, could, would love to be doing, right? And how do we get around that inner saboteur, that inner rebel who does not want to be told what to do? I actually had a session like this earlier where, a lot of times we're dealing with a younger version of ourselves where maybe it's our inner teenager. I know I've got a real feisty inner teenager. And if I'm being real, probably a lot of my self sabotage stuff comes from her. So check your inner teenager, okay? Because a lot of us have them running the show, right? So I will say that honestly, the checklist has been huge. I sort of foreshadowed that I was contemplating starting over because I did miss one day of mindset. I'm going to give myself a pass and not start over, which technically is against the rules, but here we go, talking about inner rebels. Because I actually did go to like a whole mindset talk that day. And part of why I forgot was that my daughter got sick and threw up, and it was late at night, and I would have done them. So, anyway, excuses aside, I'm going to maintain. So, I'm on day 15. I did think about starting over because, to be honest, that first 2 week period, there were some things I didn't do quite right. Like I took progress pictures, but when I started watching 75 hard videos, they montaged it. And so I was like, oh, can't wait to do that. Want to take better pictures that I could actually like share. So that was a piece. Actually, I created the checklist, which now I'm using so I don't forget and mess myself up when I've been so strict and disciplined with it myself. Part of the challenge was that I went out of town this week to Asheville, which is my favorite place ever. Luckily, they're very gluten-free friendly. Like there's a lot of gluten-free options. However, it was a summer day. It's a big, I would say, alcohol town. There's like a bajillion breweries, and it was a hot summer day, and so I just drank so much water instead, and it was actually a lot less money to just skip the cocktail on the outing. So I was super proud of myself for that. And then that Sunday night, I missed the mindset work. So anyway, I think when we're talking about shoulds, people think that being hard on themselves tends to motivate, and I find exactly the opposite. Okay, the more you shame yourself, the more you beat yourself up, the more you're going to want to escape through usually unhealthy coping strategies. So I think we just want to radically accept when we have a slip and go forward. So again, I'm giving myself a pass there and I'm counting the days. But to be honest, I was thinking about, I have a workshop coming up, and that usually is another kind of big drinking event. And it's like on my, like a week before I'm supposed to be finished. And so I was debating whether or not to go. I haven't been in many years. I really want to go. I thought, could I go alcohol free? I was like, yeah, I could, but do I want to? I don't know. And then I was like, maybe I intentionally throw it right at the end so I'll do it again, because I've literally had so many results so far. So that has been the biggest shock of all things, is just how good I feel doing this. Okay, so I talked in the first video about how I thought I was just getting older and maybe like premenopausal and all those things, moody, and yet I think I was just extremely dehydrated, because not that I haven't been grumpy, definitely the full moon hit me this weekend, but the water seems to be helping tremendously. The time outdoors, the 45-minute workout outside, the nature has been really helping me. And then working out an hour and a half a day, besides the fact that I'm very sore and tired and everything feels kind of heavy, has been amazing. Okay. So I was talking with this client today, and she was having the same thing. I know the things I should do. If you're intuitive, you get the downloads. And so how do we bridge the gap behind having brilliant ideas and actually executing said ideas? So I think a lot of creatives and intuitives tend to be very like innovative, and they have so many ideas. And again, back to that shiny object syndrome, right? And how do we get to the point of actually executing the things? And how do we choose between all of maybe our passions or all of our business ideas or what we want to pursue? So I was working with this client. We were talking about how do we actually make this thing happen. So I was suggesting some of the things that have been working for me from the 75 hard. AKA the checklist. I remember working in a lot of like restaurants when I was coming up through grad school and college. And, you know, you had the little sheets you had to check off to be able to do all your side work. And so I do think a checklist is a really great accountability. A lot of us may not naturally, I'm not someone who particularly uses a lot of those things, and yet it's been very grounding. I would say the other mindset shift that's been a part of the 75 hard has just been the non negotiables. Like, if I miss that mindset, which the original one has 10 pages of reading, but for me, I changed it to writing a page on my book or writing a page of content or writing a page of mindset because that just felt harder to me. I'm a great reader, so that really wouldn't have been much of a challenge. So I kind of like upped the ante there. That's what got me, y'all. But the mindset has been really great. Thinking about, again, back to the all or nothing thing. Sometimes we're so like manic in the way that we work, and then we burn out, and then we don't do anything for a while, and that like start stop is really disruptive. If you've read Atomic Habits, which I'm going to do a video on that soon, if you make 1% consistent progress in the end of a year, you'll be 37 times better, is the basic gist of it. And so, really, like just doing a little every day rather than trying to force yourself into like a big project and then burning out, running out of gas, and not being able to maintain it. So, again, the checklist has been really helpful, just getting out of that all or nothing mindset. So, for me, I mentioned that I'm sore. Since I'm sore, you know, I really had to vary my um, workouts. So I had a grit class today. I didn't go because it was probably going to be too intense for my body. If I had gone, I probably would have modified and not done everything they were doing. But right now, I just need, since I'm at the 2 week mark, I just need to get my hours in, but sort of do it in a gentler way. So, of course, I'll be back. So, modify, I think, is huge. And then I think, to borrow something from the DBT world, I'm also a DBT therapist. It's opposite action, which is doing the opposite of your depression and anxiety tells you to do. So if your depression is telling you to lay in bed all day, what you do is you wake up in the morning, you make your bed, you get dressed, you put your shoes on, and then you don't get back into bed. That's the hard part. Um, if you are anxious and you are scared to post online for fear of judgment or whatever, that's where you would do the opposite of anxiety, which typically with anxiety we want to avoid. So instead, we push forward and go. Now, I do think the pushing at all costs is a good way to burn out, and it is more that masculine hustle strategy. And I just don't think that's necessary. So, what I was talking about with this client was, could we do an hour of like feel good mindset, whatever that is for you, and an hour of showing up, whatever that looks like for you. And so, one thing we really want to do is feel better, like feel good. That's the point of mindset, is to get in the possibility of the feeling good vibes. Because, and it's so funny that this is real, but like if you're in a bad mood and you post something, people at some level feel that. Maybe they feel that in your photograph of your face, maybe when you were writing it, whatever it is. And so, I do notice that when I am writing or posting content, and I'm feeling good. Maybe I'm like at a coffee shop and it's like really like cozy and beautiful and I'm like in a vibe. Those posts land so much better than if I'm just like rushing or just doing it to do it. So I think just really looking at like what time and space that you have. So maybe we have so much time that it's overwhelming. Maybe we are, maybe like me, kind of commitment phobic, schedule phobic, and those kind of seem like a dirty word. And so how do we embrace something that's maybe not our go-to? And so that's again the opposite action thing, right? And so, like, I'm all about modifying and customizing, doing it your way. That's why I didn't start over my day count because I had actually been doing a lot of mindset that day. It just wasn't written. And I gave myself a mom pass for when my daughter got sick. Um, so, and I'm kind of thinking like, maybe it could be day one because I'm so much more prepared 2 weeks in than I was on the actual day one. So anyway, but I think do what works for you. And for me, it was really about like I want to complete the 75 days, and It wasn't like there was many times where I wanted to just give up and not do the second workout, or there was some like very tempting pizza and donuts in Asheville that were like the gluten-free donuts are these tiny little, which I'm thankful they had some of those. But then they were like measly compared to these like vibrant, juicy, fluffy donuts that were so good that I did not have. That's why I was so pissed when I missed my mindset. I was like, I went alcohol free. I traveled. I didn't eat any gluten, and then I like missed my mindset last minute. I was even like about to do it, and then I got detoured by mom chaos. So I do want to celebrate being a mom and running two businesses and doing the 75 hard, which is kind of crazy. It was raining today, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have to be out there walking in the rain. Luckily, it stopped. So I might just go get a walk in just to hedge my bets there. But what does this all have to do with business? Well, I think you really need and this is kind of what we do in the Fearless Feminine Academy, which is my business builder program. And it's not just a business builder, okay? It's also like a feminine power initiation. And so I think business in the traditional sense is very masculine, kind of like the 75 hard, where it's like you do it no matter what, and you just push through, and the more the better kind of thing. Well, I've lived more the better, and it's not always better, okay? And actually, I've found that, particularly since I'm a line 2 in human design, that's the natural. Like, actually, when I'm just feeling good and things are naturally flowing, like, a lot more opportunities come my way. So it depends on, your personal makeup and type. But those of us that are maybe more feminine, we can get to the point where we don't feel any time pressure, and we don't require ourselves to do any of the things that we know would contribute to being our best self. So I think for me, being kind of more of a feminine, although my Capricorn rising is always making me a little bit towards the hustle side of things, um, I have to keep her in check for sure. I think it's been, how do I make the things that are non-negotiable non-negotiables? And that's what the 75 hard has taught me, because a lot of times I would let myself off the hook. This is uncomfortable. It's too hard. I don't have time for it. I don't want to, all of those things that kind of keep us stuck, right? And so the biggest hack that I've learned, and I say this over and over again, is that the motivation comes after you do the thing. So we want to go live. Like, did I feel motivated to go live? Not really. I just happened to have an extra hour free, and this was the only time that have like a quiet non-kid film space. And so I just was like, now's the time, let's do it. Okay, so that's the opposite action, just moving straight into action. And that can carry you so far. So far is just doing the things, but I think doing the things in a way that feels really good. So um I am not going to go live for an hour. I'm going to make it a shorter amount of time. I'm going to make sure I have lunch afterwards. I may go for that walk I was talking about. So I'm going to soften the edges so that it feels good to me. But I'm also going to make sure I'm doing the things that are aligned with my mission and that are the most important things, like in this case, showing up and, completing this sort of 75 hard series. So if you think you want to learn, like, how do I've lived the life where I've been successful, but I've hustled and burned out, and you don't want to do that anymore. Like, I've definitely had moments where I hated my business because it was taking from me. But that was a lack of boundaries. That was burnout. That wasn't that I actually hated it. I was just hating the way that I was doing it. Right. And so it was that hustle vibe of just like, keep going no matter what. Right. We don't want that. No, the 75 hard, I think, does have some of that. And I think it can be character building to go through phases of that. Like for me, pushing my health, that is where I want to put some energy. And so I don't need to go full out in business. I need to go full out in health. So it's okay to do that maybe in one area where you're trying to close the gap. For some of us, that might be business. But instead, we want to do like some feminine receptive things. So, like, yes, did I count part of my workout doing some Pilates move in a hot tub? Heck yeah, I did, because I was so sore. I definitely understand the rest day. I never used to work out enough to really like understand why rest days are needed. But I would say if there's a criticism of the 75 hard, it's that there's no rest, and rest really is important. So My husband had me moving, we're building a fence, and so I was literally like moving like not pallets of wood, but like several fence rungs and like 8x10s or 2x4s, or I don't know, whatever they are. But I was lifting wood out in the heat. That was a hard workout. Okay, so not all of my workouts have been like that, but for some reason, for some, I just had to modify because my body was like too much, right? And so, how can I do it in a feminine way? So I did some belly dance moves. I was doing some like, apparently there's like YouTube walking videos, so I hit some of those. Hip hop abs has been really great because it's like kind of fun. It feels more like dancing. So those have kind of been like my go-tos to diversify my workouts because I've been sore. Now I did hear on a lot of 75 hard videos that that's a thing and it goes away. So can't wait for that moment. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of us who are maybe like smart and talented, we've lived in this fight flight cycle of like going all in and then burning out and disappearing for a while. And I think that getting started takes so much momentum that if you can maybe like reduce the expectations but keep them consistent, I think that that's really a sweet spot. And I would definitely highly recommend that. So I think some of the takeaways that uh, sort of apply to business is defining what your non-negotiables are. Um, the way that I like to hack this is time blocking. So again, I was talking about the 1 hour of mindset, the 1 hour of action. But you could do that at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. You could do that at 12 and 1. You can do that at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. But you have to get it done before you get to bed. And that's kind of the way that I've treated the 75 hard. I try to get 2 of these in before noon. Sometimes I work out in the morning. Mostly, I do work out in the evening and have to do a double, which is not really that great. I think I've moved my progress picture to the morning, and I think I'm going to move my mindset slash writing to the morning just so I don't forget and do it, not do it. So, also to make it more meaningful versus being like really tired after working out and hot, just like let me write some stuff down. But the mindset itself has been amazing. I think I'm going to, now that I've kind of got the 75 hard routine down, I think I'm going to challenge myself to go back to the page of writing in the book, and then I could have 60 pages done in 2 months, and then by then it'll be like time for NaNoWriMo, and I could just finish that thing off. So we'll see how that goes, but that's sort of my next level version. So again, non-negotiables. I think just watching that all or nothing and instead reducing your expectations, but what are the things I'm going to do daily? One thing, if you're like me and you have a lot of projects in progress but not necessarily finished, is to rank order like what's still uncompleted, and then just start like finishing off those projects, because when we finish a project, it can feel very validating, very exciting, and build momentum. So definitely recommend that. Um, and I think, just doing the damn thing is literally it. So I do like sort of like a 30-day challenge, or in this case, a 75-day challenge, to really just see if you can challenge yourself to be consistent. I think the 75 hard is hard in the sense that it has several things that you're being consistent with. And for most people, it's a radical lifestyle shift. So it's not necessarily things they've been working on. But I think with business, it can be a little softer. Like maybe you post 3 times a week and you're going to do like a 30-day straight challenge. So like you're basically doubling the amount that you're posting. That's a little more doable. And if that was the only sort of challenge you were doing, I think that that could be really good. So I just wanted to simplify from a feminine perspective, not only my progress with the 75 hard. Let me see if there's any other hacks. I gotta say the with regard to the 75 hard, the going out of town was really hard. It took a lot of discipline to not indulge in some of the things that I like to when I'm out of town, but I also just sort of recognize that um, that I would sort of use going out of town as an excuse to really like indulge in everything all at once, and that maybe just cutting out some of those things actually will have like huge health benefits. So, um, yeah, but like planning ahead, I did research all the gluten-free places, and I just like really made a non-negotiable pact with myself that I wasn't going to give in. And so like just staying strong to the commitment to yourself, I think is really huge. And then again, just like writing and posting about it online has definitely kept me honest. It definitely made me think I'm going to do the 75 days no matter what. And then here I forgot my mindset. And so I was like, oh, like just when you think you got it, sometimes is when you miss the thing, right? If you've been there, give me a comment. But yeah, I was just very determined because I was partly going to be vlogging about it and all the things, right? But I think we need that kind of determination for our business as well, and just like recognize that like when you're doing the things you know you should be doing, or let's say it more feminine, you know, things that are aligned and are part of your purpose and give you that's part of your like special gift to the world. When you do those things, you're gonna feel better, right? Hiding doesn't feel good. Hiding is like shame, right? And so the hardwired response of shame is to hide. Like when someone's ashamed, a lot of times they'll look down, right? And so I think it's just one of those things, like if we can feel good because we know we are showing up and doing our thing, then the results don't really matter. The money doesn't really matter because we are sharing our gift with the world. And so I want to inspire people to come along on the journey with me with the 75 hard, because that I will say actually is the best tip, is that my husband's been walking with me at night. My daughter was doing some of the dance videos with me. No one's taken me up on the gluten-free thing necessarily, but just having a workout buddy has been tremendous because it's just a lot easier to pull it off when you're doing it with someone. So, that being said, I would love to get 75 women. That's my first goal. I think that ultimately it'll be a lot more than that, but I'd love 75 women to do the 75 hard with me. I may do a second round. I may switch to 75 soft, but I'm definitely determined to get through the 75 days. So join me any way along the ride. And if you feel like, oh, God, 75 hard, are you crazy? That's how I felt when I was watching people do it. Like, I'd like to, I feel drawn to it, but like, ugh, I don't think I could execute that. One, I think it's good to have the time and space in your life for it. Here I am in like all these retrogrades and I'm pushing really hard. But this is really the only area that I'm pushing. I am launching Fearless Feminine, but I've done that many times. I have support. Everything else is kind of on autopilot, which is a nice feeling. So I'm going hard in like one specific area, and it's time limited, 75 days. So yeah, I would also like to, well, yeah, so if you don't have time and space, like maybe you just take on the water challenge. Maybe you just take out the 45-minute outside challenge. Maybe you just do the mindset part of it, okay? Like I definitely hear this talk is all about not being all or nothing. And I think the 75 hard is very much all or nothing. So if even if you pick up one of those habits, and if I was going to say one, I would say the gallon of water. Game changer. Okay, if you just do that, like your life will change. But collectively, the results have been amazing and very inspiring. And I just want to share it with the world. And of course, I also am launching Fearless Feminine, which is my business builder. And it's done from a feminine perspective. Also, my background is a trauma therapist. And if where did the whole pleasure psychologist came from? It came from like 15 years as a trauma therapist. And it's been super rewarding to help women heal trauma. I feel very, you know, gifted that I have given these women the gift of like recovering from trauma. And I do think the ultimate way to recover from trauma, which by the way, everyone has to some extent, is to lean into pleasure. And so that has definitely got me through the 75 hard, is how can I do this in a way that feels good to me? A lot of this stuff is not natural to me. So how can I do it in a way that does feel aligned? So, you know, that is taking the easy days. That's, you know, finding like a gluten-free goodie that meets my sweet tooth, you know? And of course, as we all do in Fearless Feminine, celebrating all the way. I learned this from my parents who celebrate the good and the bad. Celebration is the way to build momentum and motivation, ultimately execution. So I just want to kind of leave you with that thought. And I would like, if you're, you know, a mom boss who, or like either are or aspiring to Fearless Feminine could be for you. It is the business builder that brings in feminine power, brings in pleasure, it brings in human design in a way that's like really uncomplicated, because believe me, I did it the hard way in a couple different businesses with a couple different things. So I've already tried out all the things that don't work. And one of the things I'm great at is really customizing for you what's going to work for you versus what would work for someone else. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is they see what everybody else is doing and then they start doing that. And sometimes that's like the most unaligned thing you can possibly do. So if you think you're interested, shoot me a DM or a message. I'd love to talk with you more about it and like root me on, because I honestly didn't think I would make it this far. And as you can tell, maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm actually on day 2, not day 15. But the point is I'm going for it, and I hope you go for it too. Bye.